Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Full Spectrum TTRPG podcast. My name is Trey.
I am hungry.
Slow down, Rugged. We're talking Ouroborous Cycle tonight for SCP. It's been a little bit, so I'm going to give a quick rundown of
Okay.
SCP
Like a recap?
and a quick recap of where we're at. In case you don't know, SCP is a online group writing exercise, I guess, where we've built a world. I say we, I haven't written anything myself. A world has been built by countless authors at this point that have wrote different articles, and among those are the 001s. These are the special ones. These have to be like vetted and approved, and these are important. These are special. These are the most powerful SCPs, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
We're trying to
Yes.
figure out what we want to do. But...
Well, with the SCPs, we want to get this big base thing done so we can go like, so we can start hitting the individual ones, some of which will be a longer story. And some of them are just, I think just like a paragraph.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But we got to get through the 001s to get there.
Yeah.
This is the biggest of them. This is the Ouroborous Cycle. It is a 4-part story told by DJ Cactus and Twisted Grim. It is incredibly in-depth, and we are not covering all of it. We are taking a dip into it, and I'm telling you, the bare bones version of it, you should go read it for yourself if you want the rest. Because, man, it's really, really good. Yes, it's time for the O5 Council to die.
Yes.
But, quick recap on the Ouroborous Cycle. It starts with the Kingdom of Abaddon, that is a kingdom of sorcerers that start up in the Mojave, and it's halted so running.
Okay. Yes.
Catch up. Yeah. The SCP Foundation was started so that they could counter the Kingdom of Abaddon and all these these sorcerers. But well, it's O5 because that's the highest classification in the Foundation.
Yeah.
It's the highest level you can reach. But there's not going to be 13 of them for long. So, the O5 Council created a gun that was actually a bunch of children buried underground to be able to wipe out anything. And they destroyed the Kingdom of Abaddon. And then O5-1 killed the administrator and ran off with the keys to the gun, basically.
Yeah.
They buried the children under cement. And then after that, the Church of the Broken God found a faulty heart that was the heart of the factory, and their broken god almost came back, but was stopped by somebody from the Global Occult Initiative.
Yes, with the box.
Right, with a box. That's important. Remember that. Because they thought they might want them again in the future. It's the SCP Foundation.
Yeah.
And then the third part was about the black hole, the singularity, that they accidentally opened up that ate a guy, and how it 100% murdered for good that O51, right?
Yeah.
It crushed him into nothingness. He no longer exists.
Spaghettification.
Right. So now we have a new O51, and it also killed O53, so we have a new O53. And this last part is about a guy named Calvin Lucian, who is part of the Global Occult Initiative, and he's attempting to kill all the members of the O5 Council. They got a lot of them.
Yeah.
They got plenty of them. But Calvin Lucian has assembled a team, and this team is made up of the old soldier. How did I forget to write his name down here? Oh, crud.
What is it?
Olivia is the artist.
Yeah, but
Adam's
it's
the
got a little bit
hacker.
longer waiting period, that's all. But it is much easier, yeah.
It's true. And then it is... How did I forget? Because he doesn't come up for a little while in the story. Anthony the veteran.
Okay.
So Anthony the veteran, Olivia the artist, Adam the hacker, and Calvin the brain. Right? The four of them together make up the team that's going to kill the O5. They killed O5-13, who had made a bargain with death and was kept in a deathless state so that all the rest of them could...
I'm sure.
We'll get to that later. So that all the rest of them could stay alive.
It's not an 001.
It's not an 001, no. And when Calvin killed him, Death was allowed... the children. Death was allowed back to kill the... We'll get to that. To kill the rest of the council.
Look, there's a band called Steely Dan. Research where that name comes from. Continue.
There's a stand in JoJo named after that band.
Well, that name. Yes, well, that name comes from a book, kind of a classic book. It's not Vonnegut.
Take this chance to catch a quick drink.
Go ahead. I can't remember who it is. That name comes from that. And the reason the band took that name is because originally they were Leather Canaries.
Oh.
And it was the two guys from Steely Dan and Chevy Chase was playing drums. And then Chevy Chase quit to become an actor.
Right.
On Saturday Night Live and all that. And they went on and they chose the name Steely Dan from this book. Or what the guy's in prison for in Clockwork Orange. Right. Never mind, just go.
So they killed 0513, which had made the bargain with Death. They killed 0512, which was the accountant. And they were able to trick him by flipping a coin. He wasn't able to account for that.
Yeah.
0511 was the liar that Olivia found, and that was actually a member of the Global Cult Initiative and the Chaos Insurgency, and didn't realize, and took care of himself once the reveal was done. So this leads us to 0510, which is the Archivist. This one is really long.
10 of them are left.
10 of them are left.
There's only 10 of them.
Yeah. This one's really long, so I've shortened it a lot. Calvin and Adam go to take down the Archivist, and Calvin reveals that he knows where the Archivist is at. The Archivist is in the library, which is an extra dimensional space that the Foundation has access to. To be able to enter it, you have to go between two freshborn saplings that always stay freshborn. They never grow past a certain height. And when you go through it, you have to willingly give up a piece of information that is important to you, but only just important enough. Not something vital to you or anything like that. We don't know what Calvin gives up, but Adam chooses to give up what Thaco means and the knowledge of what Thaco means.
Okay.
So that he can go between there. Something that matters to him, but...
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that.
In the middle of this, we get a really interesting flashback where Aaron and a man named Arians, and Aaron is the current Aaron Siegel. He's the current 05-1. And this man named Arians are having a conversation. And Aaron reveals that there never was a Kingdom of Abaddon. That the whole reason they made the gun before was to try and kill the administrator. It had nothing to do... Kingdom of Abaddon was a story they made up, a lie to convince everybody else they needed this. And that's going to be important later. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
At one point here, Aaron is upset, and Arians is even more angry. And Arians says, I strapped children down to operating tables, Aaron. I strapped them down, and I helped you carve out every last inch of who they were. They screamed and screamed, and we kept carving. And then the screams got softer and softer until they were just tiny broken sounds. Little wet sobs you had to strain to hear. And then one day, they didn't make any sound at all. Aaron Yeager?
Yes. Yeah. So, there you have it.
There you go.
If you want to find it, look, it's in classic literature and all kinds of things.
There you go.
Naked Lunch's a weird book. There's quite a few from that time period. Acid was a big thing.
That's true. Aaron does not give Arians the answer that he wants here, and Arians leaves angry.
Aaron Yeager, right?
Yeah, Aaron Yeager, for sure. Okay. Because Arians wants Aaron to shut it all down. To end the Foundation, end it all. We've done too much.
Right.
And Arians is not given that answer, so he leaves in anger. Later on, it's going to come up later, but we might as well go ahead and mention it now because we're not going to have any great more flashbacks until then. At one point, Arians comes back attempting to kill Aaron Siegel.
Okay.
Because he believes that Aaron Siegel has become a problem.
Yeah.
And he can't bring himself to shoot his friend. And so Aaron Siegel tells him, you will not see me again.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's the last we leave on that. So Calvin and Adam make it into the library, right? And in there is a creature, an archivist, but not the archivist.
Yeah.
That is, and it's the creature that's native to this domain, this dimension, this pocket that the Foundation's been able to tap into, and it basically just tells them, "Hey, yeah, I'll take you to her. She's down below. Why not? Sure, you know, you have just as much right to be here as she does." But then they give Calvin a tube, a metal tube, almost like a thermos, and they say, "You have come to reclaim this," and Calvin says, "Yes, give it to me." So he takes this tube. As they're going down the stairs, Adam asks a bunch of questions about what this whole library is, what the librarians are, what the archivist is, all that stuff. And Calvin tells them that this is the foundation of the Foundation. The Foundation found knowledge in here that allowed it to do what it's doing.
Now. Okay.
That
Yeah.
inside this library is all the knowledge of all the universe. And that it's guarded by the serpent.
Of course it is.
Right. And again, it gets a lot deeper. We're not going to get into everything the librarian says here, but eventually they get to two doors, two big double doors. They go through them, and on the other side of those doors are two trees in an open glade, and a woman sitting in front of them with three books. She's, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I tried to hold that one in. She's the archivist.
Okay.
And Calvin tries to shoot her, and it doesn't work. No.
No.
Don't spoil the story, Dark. Hello, Faith. We're getting there. Just hold up. She gives him a whole like speech, about how she's been reading and she has all the knowledge of all the world now, and because she has all the knowledge, she's become unstoppable. And then she says that she has become the serpent because she read every book. She has the knowledge of good and evil. No one can stop her anymore, and she turns into a giant serpent.
Okay.
And so they try fighting her. Bullets do nothing to her. They don't affect her at all. And she wraps Calvin up in her coils and begins trying to strangle him and crush him, right? Calvin tells Adam to open the tube. And from the tube comes out a spear and a harpoon gun.
Okay.
Just bigger than the tube, but came out of it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So while the archivist is trying to kill Calvin, Adam loads it up in the harpoon gun and fires it, and it spears the archivist to the tree, and she dies.
Okay.
And turns back into a person. And again, there's a whole story there of all the stuff she says to Calvin and Adam. Not getting into all that tonight. We got 9 more of these to cover. But you should go back and read it. It's very good. The spear is pinning her to one of the trees. And 2 figures come out from around the edge of the tree. And you're on a track. I'm not going to tell you if it's the right or the wrong one.
2 before. Yes, it is.
But, yes.
Well, I figure it might be the spear of destiny in some kind of form or fashion. So
right. One of these figures is in a long green robe and has black gloves, and the other one's in a dark robe. The green figure has all its S's are carried out. It's probably the serpent, right?
Okay, yeah.
And the real serpent. And it says, figure turns to look at her and says, I can see, I'm trying not to spoil too much here because the way it says it. I can see the spear, or I can see her pinned to the tree, but I can't actually see the spear.
Yeah.
And the serpent then reveals that this spear is called the Spear of the Non-Believer.
Okay.
It's an ancient weapon. You've already guessed. It was the spear that was stabbed into Jesus' side.
Yeah.
The only thing that can harm divinity is something that is made from one who did not believe.
Yeah.
In this universe, right? Later on, we're going to find out that it was the spear that Adam wielded. That Cain made after Cain threw down his brother Abel.
Yeah.
He made the spear out of Abel's bones.
Okay.
And tried to turn on God.
Yeah.
And Adam struck him down. And then Seth stole the spear.
Okay.
and ran off with it. And so it's cursed with Adam's curse and furious with the blood of Abel, or cursed with
Cain's
curse,
curse.
sorry.
Yeah, it'd be Cain's
And
curse.
furious with the blood of Abel that calls out for, it's not that Lancelot, it is from High School DxD.
That was funny.
But there is a whole story in the SCP universe written by DJ Cactus about Seth and the kingdom of Adam and everything there. We'll get to that SCP in a long time from now.
Yeah.
Because it's like 3,200 something. Very, very cool story. As like 4 knights from throughout history stood with Seth and he recruited them and taught them how to fight.
Yeah.
And then they eventually fell to the power of demons and fought against him. It's a really great story. We don't have time to get into it right now.
Yeah.
But that's why this spear is important. How Calvin got it, we don't know yet. Adam asks him, and Calvin won't tell him.
I like the other story how Cain died. There's like 3. Well,
there's a couple in
there's
SCP,
a couple.
Yeah.
One of his Lot's. Lot is at the end of his life. Can't hardly see.
Yeah.
Cain finally decides to come. He's immortal. He's lived for a long time. Finally, he's going to come out of the land of Nod.
Right.
And Lot's got his bow, but he can't see very well, so he relies on his kid.
Yeah.
This guy's coming towards him, and Lot's like, "Hey, what should I do?" And the kid's like, "Yeah, fire." So he does. So he does, and they run over there, and he's like, yeah. They see that it's Cain. Lot recognizes that it's Cain. He's like, I just killed can't remember how many great grandfather. I just killed my great grandfather. He had a curse on him. Now you put it on me.
Yeah.
And they have like this argument over who gets the curse because the kid told him to fire.
Right.
And, yeah. What a weird thing.
There's a lot of really good stuff with Cain and SCPs too.
I'm sure.
We'll get to those. We mentioned them a couple times already, I think.
Yeah.
But they are the 4 horsemen, but not the same 4 horsemen from the other SCP. But the cool thing about these 4 night horsemen is they ride dragons. So
might as well.
But that's the archivist. They leave the library and are told they can't come back for a certain amount of time, because they bloodied the library.
Yeah.
So next up is the Outsider. And before I was reading like the full description of each one, we're not going to do that either because we got to get through 10 of them. And last time it took us an hour to get through 3. So the Outsider is someone that originally did not want to be on the O5 Council. She was brought in because members of the O5 were dying, and she was raised up to the position. And that's the plan. Once the council had gotten to a point where they were just pulling people, upper staff members.
Mm-hmm.
Once you became a member of the O5 Council, you can't just back out of it now.
Yeah, it would seem like a position that you really like. I don't want to be O5.
Yeah,
I'm happy I'm not down there with Class D.
Right.
Don't want to be an O5 though.
Mm-hmm. And so she didn't have a choice. She was stuck with this. Mm-hmm. And they didn't choose her because they thought she'd be a good addition to the team. They chose her because they needed more people on the roster. Because if they didn't have 13, the deal with death was broken.
Right.
And so after what happened with the Singularity, they couldn't revive some people. They had to rush people in here. And so she never wanted to be a part of this. And when Calvin finds her, she is waiting for them. She tells them that she's Donna Taylor, that she didn't want to be, but she is now an O5 member. And Calvin says, "You know why I'm here?" She nods and says, "Yes, I do. I understand. I think I don't agree with, what you're doing. But I think if I had your point of view, I would understand it's different." So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they were bringing in stuff like this time they couldn't.
Yeah.
There was a couple things that happened to make sure they couldn't.
And so she basically says, hey, I understand you're just doing what you think is right.
Yeah.
And Anthony basically tells her, "Hey, we're looking for the 8th. Can you tell us anything about it?" And she says they're not going to have much trouble finding the 8th. They don't know what she means by that, but she looks at the gun he's holding and she says, "You don't have to do that. I slit my wrist before you even came in this room."
Oh, okay.
And so they have a moment with her where she gives them a little bit more information about the Foundation, but she can't really tell them much. They didn't give her much.
Right.
Because they didn't trust her.
Yeah.
And so then she dies in front of them. But as she's dying, she does tell Calvin that she can see that he's afraid of death. And when Calvin says, "No, I'm not. I'm dedicated to my mission," she smiles, and then she dies. Mm-hmm. So then is number 8, the Lesser. This is a guy that always, everybody knows somebody like this, right? They always thought everybody else had it better than them, and they needed to bring themselves up to that level by any means necessary. And so this guy bought his way into the O5 Council.
Not sure. It's kind of a fair question.
I agree, but remember the missions, and this is my fault. I should have gone back over the mission statement of the Chaos Insurgency. Even the members of the O5 Council that didn't specifically call for things, their crime was they were complicit.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the Chaos Insurgency says they all have to die. They were complicit.
Absolutism.
Right. They're Sith. So we find out a little bit more about Aaron Siegel here. He was in love with a woman named Sophia Nazarene, which is going to be important later. He wants to hear her voice again, but instead the only voice that he hears is that of the children saying, come back to us, make us whole again. Because remember, he's the one that has the keyword to be able to activate the children.
Yes.
So then when Calvin's team makes it to 058's castle, because the dude has his own castle, I mentioned he wants to be better than everybody else.
Might as well.
Baron Hoadley, being his actual name, Anthony tells him that Baron Hoadley is very much a coward. Well, no, Calvin's team didn't help the O5 Council make any choices. They have nothing to do with the O5. They just want to kill the O5. None of them were part of the O5 or anything. Most of them weren't even part of the Foundation. But their goal is to stop every member of the O5 because they think that... Remember, in this world, everything started happening anomalously when the Foundation started doing things. In this world, it's not that the anomalies were showing up and the Foundation started to contain them. Is that the Foundation
found the library somehow.
Right, they found the library, and then all of a sudden, anomalies started showing up everywhere. So Calvin and the rest of the Chaos Insurgency blames the Foundation for all the people that have died because of the broken god, because of the children.
We're having an ad.
All of it. I guess we are. It's a bad time for me to be explaining this.
Right. No, let's know. They haven't got the ads yet.
Well, they couldn't stop them before, and they did everything they could before to stop them, and now they are stopping them. So I don't think they think they're guilty of it. But so they get to the castle. I would also want a castle, to be clear. They get to the castle, and Baron Hoadley is already dead. So is everybody else in the castle. Baron Hoadley is a corpse in the middle of the room with metal and gears and all kinds of stuff coming out of his body. And Anthony tells him that Baron Hoadley had modified his body because he couldn't die before.
Yeah.
So he'd modified himself and turned himself into a cyborg. And because he couldn't die, his body just kept repairing the damage. But the instant that they killed 13...
Yeah, or 13, yeah.
Suddenly he could die again. And so he did for good.
Just job done.
Yep.
Yes.
This leads the team... Yeah, very much. This leads the team to have a little bit of time to talk about each other. And Olivia tells the story of how Calvin found her and recruited her into the Chaos Insurgency. Basically, she was at an artist special event, and the Foundation found her and tried to detain her. And in her fleeing, she ran into Calvin, who shoved her into a car and drove her away and explained, as he was driving her away, what his mission was. And she decided to join up.
Okay.
They ask a little bit about Anthony and about who he is, and Anthony just grunts to answer, right? Yeah. Remember, he's the impossibly old soldier. They mention the engineer, and Anthony gets really angry. And the engineer was the person who started the Chaos Insurgency. And Anthony gets incredibly angry, tells him, the engineer is not who you think he is. Do not ever tell me you're going to do it for his legacy or anything like that. And when they question about it, he finally tells them the engineer was a traitor to the Chaos Insurgency. He started the Chaos Insurgency to try to fight back against the Foundation, and then he went and joined the Foundation.
Ah.
And Anthony is furious with that because he was there when the engineer started the insurgency. He was one of the first boots on the ground with him. So it's from all this that we find out as well that Anthony has drank from the Fountain of Life, which is what Calvin used to kill 0513.
Yeah.
And so Anthony says that after drinking it, your life becomes shallow. You can still taste things, but they don't taste like they used to. The color in the very sky eats away until all you see is gray, and there is no joy in the world anymore.
That's awful.
It's pretty bad. But Anthony has a big outburst here about the engineer and then just walks away. So then we go after Green, 05-7. This lady is crazy. She is using Cambodian militants to play war games with herself. She is funding multiple different militant groups and the Cambodian government so that they all fight each other in her own personal little war game.
Okay.
And so she's crazy, right? But they have to try and stop her, and that means they have to get into the heart of Cambodia itself, right?
Yeah.
They team up with a guy named Van de Veer. It's a friend of Calvin's that's also part of the insurgency. And together, the 5 of them spread out into the city. Anthony gets separated from the rest because he was already a little bit separate because he was still mad.
Okay.
And then Calvin, Adam, Van de Veer, and Olivia try to make a run for it through the streets as a riot starts up. Because Green knows they're coming for her, and she wants her militant groups and the Foundation Task Force, Nine-Tailed Fox, to all try to put them down.
Okay.
They do eventually get cornered by Nine-Tailed Fox, who instead of killing them, gas them. So when they wake up, they're in a dimly lit room, blindfolded, and Green is there. And she's talking about how she's caught them, and now she's going to get them, and...
Yeah.
She tells them, to give her the information on who started all this. And when Van de Veer won't give the information up, she shoots him in the head.
Okay.
So Van de Veer's dead. Then Green tells Calvin that he has to pick who's going to die. Either Olivia can die, or the leader of the current militia that is gathered outside the front of the building can die. The Nine-Tailed Fox are like the mascots of the Mobile Task Force.
Yeah.
Which, the fact that they're working for her, they never would have wanted that, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have a choice. 05s are dying. What are they supposed to do?
Right.
So, basically the option is, I can shoot your teammate, or I can start a full-blown revolt here. And none of you will probably make it out alive. Well, Calvin refuses to answer the question. When she comes in smiling, giving him that grin, he just spits in her face. So she shoots the leader of the militia and then has his body thrown out the window into the streets. And a riot starts even more than was going on before. People are very upset. She tries to tell him that there are no noble sacrifices, Calvin. No matter what you try to do, no matter who dies, nothing comes of it. Life is just a game. And of course she feels that way. She's up to this point been immortal, right?
Yeah.
She talks about how even though she's no longer immortal, she still will be through her actions. Perpetuity is what she'll have, right?
Yeah.
Calvin basically gets her to focus on him, but she knows what he's doing because Adam and Olivia are slowly working their way out of the handcuffs. And so she pulls a pistol on Adam, and before she can fire, a bullet hits her in the hand from through the window, and Anthony is set up. And because he saw the riot going on, he knew better than to try and get into that. So he set up with his rifle.
Okay.
And he hit her in the hand, trying to get her in the head, but the distance was too high, right? Too far. She goes running out of the room. Anthony still keeps shooting. Adam, Calvin, and Olivia try to follow, but some of the Nine-Tailed Fox come down the stairwell towards them.
Okay.
And Adam, at this point, Van de Veer's dead. They're in the middle of a war zone. Adam is done with it. He pulls out the Spear of the Non-Believer again, and he throws it this time. And when he does, It creates a vacuum in the room. All the wind is sucked up following the spear. It ignites in an inferno of fire that sets the building on fire. That thing's not playing around.
Yeah.
So those guys are dead. And so they continue on after Green 057. She gets into a helicopter and takes off. Anthony keeps trying to take pot shots at her, but he can't seem to get her. She stops in the air so she can gloat for a minute and talk about how, this was all her way. One of the militia guys from the street fires an RPG and takes her helicopter out of the sky. So then Anthony, Adam, Calvin, and Olivia follow to go make sure she's dead, right?
Yeah.
And while they're approaching the helicopter, and I'm going to read this verbatim, a figure stepped out of the wreckage towards them, burned, barely balancing on melting legs. It raised a pistol and fired, and Anthony stepped in between Calvin and the bullet. Anthony moves in, takes the shot. Calvin fires. 057 collapses. She's gone, right? And then Calvin holds Anthony as Anthony tells him his name was never Anthony. He's actually Vincent Arians. He's the man that tried to kill Aaron Siegel before he could become 051.
Yeah.
And could not kill his friend. He's been having to live that down ever since.
Yeah.
If he'd done that, how many people would be alive today? He asked Calvin to finish the mission. Calvin goes to pull out the last little bit of the water of life that he has, intending to save Anthony again.
Right.
And Anthony pushes it back and says, "No, I've had my time. I failed in my mission. It's yours now.
I just want to rest."
Right. And so Vincent Arians dies. Olivia pulls out her paints in the middle of this war zone. This is the only thing in all this that I'm like, okay, look, we're in the middle of a war zone. You shouldn't be doing this here. Like, somebody just shot this helicopter down. Anyway, she pulls out her paints, and she paints a sigil onto his body, and his body turns into glass butterflies. And as they fly away, each one carries a single note of a song that Anthony used to whistle.
Okay.
Which is, it's a really nice touch, I like that. They escape into the jungle, right?
Right.
And as they get away into the jungle, I mentioned last time we talked about this, that there are some parts in here that are very much just, hey, we needed to keep the story moving. As they escape into the jungle, a man pulls up to them in a Jeep and tells them they'll find their next contact in the village up ahead, and then says, "For the insurgency," and runs off into the trees. Sure. So now they have a Jeep, and they drive to the next town. And from there, they go after 056, the American.
I'm afraid of Americans.
I'm so excited for us to talk about the American.
I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it.
I really like the
Watch out,
Ouroborous Cycle.
bearded man.
Watch out, indeed. I think around here is where it starts to get a little too much sometimes,
Okay.
right? Because the American is 05-6. The American Union Brigadier General Rufus King.
Okay.
That has, of course, been kept alive because of the water of life and the contract with death. However he stayed alive before that happened, nobody knows. Yes. Rufus King founded the Red Right Hand of the Foundation, which is the best task force. We mentioned how the Nine-Tailed Fox was the mascot task force. Red Right Hand is the best task force. They're the cyborgs.
Gotcha.
They're augmented, and he paid for that out of his own pocket. He wanted a spot on the 05 Council so he could support America with the power of the Foundation. And he has done just that many, many times. He's also the leader of MTF Omega 7 Pandora's Box, which he started with General Bow many years ago. Another Union general from the Civil War.
Okay, yeah, right.
He has an office in the Pentagon. The president has to answer when he calls. He bankrolls the United States government.
Yeah.
So, Calvin's team meets up with their contact at this little town, and it's Kowalski. And if you don't remember Kowalski, he was the guy that got the job Calvin wanted to be in charge of Delta. Kowalski was very much a pencil pusher before all this. But Kowalski tells them that all of the Chaos Insurgency has become like charged up because of what they're doing. They're finally getting to make a difference and put the Foundation down.
Right.
And so all of them are in the field. All of them are trying to gather information, find out where they are, the O5, so that Calvin and his team can kill them. And so Kowalski tells them that the American is coming here. The American doesn't want to sit back and wait. The American wants a good scrap.
I told him we found oil.
Right. And so the American is on the way with the entire power of the U.S. military. And Kowalski tells them they have images that show that there are strange storage containers that have been loaded onto the destroyer that the American is using to come to Cambodia. The rest of the world thinks that America's declaring war on Cambodia.
No, we wouldn't. That's kind of funny. First of all, like going into this whole Cambodia thing, because you know Vietnam's right beside it, right? And actually, there were some issues with Cambodia during the Okay, yeah, no. As tough as they were talking about it, that wasn't going on in Vietnam. It was tough they were talking about Vietnam.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't talk about Cambodia.
Kowalski does tell him, too. He says, I met 056 once, back before I joined Delta at a government function. I don't know if he knew who I was, but if he did, he didn't act like it. I don't know if there's a more arrogant and braggadocious person in the entire world. The way he talks, he was the man who single-handedly built the most powerful military in the world. Maybe he did. I don't know. I don't think you win here by being smart, Calvin. I think you win by forcing him to do something stupid. So, Calvin and his team attempt to hide out in the jungle. They, cook some food on a little fire. They get seen by a drone. All of a sudden, jeeps and tanks are everywhere. They run in their jeep. They gun it. And they eventually wind up getting funneled into a meeting with the American himself. And the American, who introduced himself as Rufus King, an American citizen. That's how he introduced himself.
All right.
Says, look, son, a man's got to look out for his own interests. And there is nothing I am more interested in than the ongoing safety and security of the United States of America. Full stop. I got into this game because I wanted to be able to better anticipate the threats posed by the strange and the unusual, and by God, I've seen my fair share. During that time, I've been able to oversee projects that have strengthened the security of our great nation by way of new technology or other such advantage that the paranatural offers us. He continues like that for a while, right? Talking about how great he is and all the things he's done. And then he says, but then you had to come along and snatch away our get-out-of-jail-free card when you pushed poor old Felix down that shaft. Now, I'm not dying of old age or disease anytime soon. The Foundation took care of that a long time ago. But now I'm susceptible to all manners of harms, and by extension, so is the United States. That, I am afraid, just won't do. Then he makes them an offer. A hunt. They can take their Jeep, and they can drive right back out of there, out of that canyon that they cornered them in. And then 056 will hunt them. Or they can get blown up right here and right now. There's not really an option there, right? So, Calvin says, all right, we'll take that bet. And they drive off. 05-6, probably. 05-6, then he talks, as Calvin's driving away, he yells after him about the spear and about how it's older than any of them could know. As I told you, we know as readers that it's, when you say the spear of the non-believer, that's spear, right? That he took from Adam, that came from Cain. In the story, they don't know that yet. But he tells them basically the spear can kill gods, that it could kill Cthulhu or the flying spaghetti monster or anything like that. And then he says, but we don't know if it can kill this. And they open up one of the storage containers, and SCP 682 walks out of that container. For anybody who doesn't know, 682 is the hard to kill reptile.
Okay.
It hates everybody.
Right.
It's very hard to put down.
Yes.
So the American has made a saddle on the back of 682, and he gets onto the back of 682 with a anomalous whip in one hand, which is Black Peter's whip, used by Black Peter, the elf that accompanies Sinterklaas.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's hard not to laugh while I'm saying it. He's on 682. He has Black Peter's whip, and then he has what is Billy the Kid's pistol in his other hand, which is also anomalous and can always have reloads, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
And then he goes after him. They go after him. It's
You got a lizard with a saddle on it.
he's something special, right?
Yeah.
So, as they're escaping, because we had to get this at some point, and this was not the time for it, but it's when they decided to put it in here. As they're escaping, Adam asks where Calvin got the spear. Originally, to have given it to the library, right?
Yeah.
Calvin tells him that when he was young, he stumbled upon a lake with his mother that was full of bodies. This is SCP-2316, the lake full of bodies. The Foundation needs you to remember, you do not recognize the bodies in the water. Repeat after me, I do not recognize the bodies in the water. If you don't say that, you see people you know, and the lake consumes you.
Gotcha.
Right? Calvin talks about how his mother walked into it right away, and he had tried to save her, but he had failed. And recently he'd gone back to the lake, and there was a figure standing there that almost seems like it was a person superimposed on a ghost, and they had given him the metal tube and told him that he would need it. So they're running, they're trying to get away, and Adam tells them that his old hometown is near here. If they go there, they might be okay. So they get to his old town, and again, I'm cutting out a lot of the story.
Yeah.
For brevity's sake. If you really should go back and read it yourself if you're interested in this. If I haven't convinced you to read it by the American on the back of 682, I don't know what will. But they get to Adam's hometown, which is quite a bit up from Cambodia. I guess, it doesn't say this, but I guess the American gave them a good head start.
Yeah.
Because they wind up almost into Russia.
Oh, well, hold on.
So, it's not like a huge amount of distance, but it is distance, right?
I don't know. I'm not good enough with the geography. I got to know a little bit of geography over there. Trying to think of where they would go through. Because you said they go almost to Russia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, in this town, they find Father Bramimond, which might sound like a familiar name to you. It's the name from the Church of the Broken God.
Yeah.
The one that told him that everything was going to be okay, but he wasn't there.
Right.
Father Bramimond is there, and he's moving slowly. Something doesn't seem right in the way he's walking or the way his skin looks. He tells them the town got sick after Adam left. And Adam reveals that the entire reason why he was grabbed as a D-class, because remember, he was a D-class that Calvin saved.
Mm-hmm.
The entire reason why he was a D-class is because his town had contracted an illness, but they didn't know what the illness was. And when they reported it to the government, the Foundation had found out about it and taken the city. Before all the O5 were killed that led up to this town would have been heavily guarded. But it was one of the first places that they pulled Mobile Task Force from when O5 members started dying.
Okay.
And Father Bramimond he's not okay. But before he can tell anything more, SCP-682 comes over the ridge into the town with the American on his back, firing shots in the air because he can.
Yeah.
682 tries to throw the American off his back, but the American slaps him with the Black Peter's whip.
Yeah.
682 can't deny it now, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so he comes into the city. He charges towards Calvin's group with the American saying that, he's got him now, boys. And when he does, Father Bramimond moves in the way and erupts.
Oh.
Because the town was taken over by the Flesh That Hates. The Flesh That Hates is SCP-610.
Yeah.
It is, we talked about it a little bit in our first introductory episode,
Yes.
like 682.
Yeah.
It wants to kill everything because it can and turn everything into more of it.
Yeah.
And so, all of a sudden, there is a fight between the Flesh That Hates and 682. And 682 is winning this fight.
Yeah.
Like, it's one instance of 610, the
Yeah.
Flesh That Hates.
Yeah.
But with the sound of the gunfire come from the mountains around the town all the other instances of 610 that the townspeople had been turned into.
Yeah.
And Adam can almost recognize the way that his mother walked in one of the instances. The American is now whipping 682. He's whipping 610s. He's firing shots. Now, none of it seems to matter, right? Olivia sees a moment where she might be able to get a shot off at him and fires a shot. He whips the bullet out of midair. Because of course he does. Yeah. He's just that guy, right? Little by little, they keep trying to get him down, and every time he's slapping at it, and he's shooting at other things, and he's trying to control himself and protect himself. But Olivia is able to get another shot in, and though he smacks one bullet out of the air, he's not able to stop the second one in time, and it hits him right in the chest.
Yeah.
He drops the whip, puts his hand on his heart, looks up to the sky, and falls into the group of 610s.
Saying the Pledge of Allegiance the whole way down.
Yeah, even as he died.
Yes.
They walk away at this point. They don't stay
to
see the rest of this fight.
I wouldn't. There's some things that mortals aren't supposed to be involved in.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, no.
No.
Well,
sorry.
Hopefully that bug wasn't a 610, is
right.
As they retreat, the tanks start pulling up that were following 682.
Yeah.
And also get subsumed, by the horde. They get up onto a ridge looking over everything, and they get to watch as the flesh that hates completely devours the body of 682. Strips flesh from bone. After the 610 instances have gone back into the mountains, from underneath the skull of 682 comes out a tiny lizard, because he's hard to kill. He's going to regrow, man.
Yeah.
And this one little lizard looks up at them, and Olivia says it is the most angry she's ever seen a lizard. And then it skitters away.
Dang.
So that was the American. As they are driving away from here, everybody's kind of quiet. Nobody really knows what to say. They get stopped by 055, the Blackbird.
Okay.
Who has come to meet them. And he tells them, "Good evening. I hear you're going to be soon looking for me, yes?" Because he's been watching what happened and really thought the American would kill them. But oh well, guess it's time for him to get involved. There's a lot.
Strange.
And
sorry, Faith.
Just a black screen. Man, that is really weird. Also, when you say giant bug in this context, I'm thinking of a bug like this tall now.
Well, I don't know if she was playing Lotro or if it was something in her house.
That's a good question. There we are.
Okay.
So, we are on 055. We're making pretty good time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going the pace we're at till we get to like 1 and 2. I don't know. It's very strange. It only started doing that recently too. I'll send an email and see if I can figure out what's going on. But the Blackbird is age unknown, British Moroccan ancestry. That's fair. He says that he's special compared to all the others.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we get a little bit of a flashback here to Aaron Siegel. It's specifically Anthony. It's a flashback. It's like a flashback in a flashback. I hate it when stuff does this. It's Anthony talking about what Aaron did before and about how when they were making the weapon and they what's the right word where I understand where they lobotomize. That's the word I was looking for. The children, he says that we were fooled. Abaddon was an excuse, one perpetrated by the administrator to, for the first time, create an anomaly. So now we find the actual truth that it wasn't that 051 used the gun to try and kill the administrator. Is that the administrator used the gun to try and create an anomaly.
Gotcha.
But there hadn't been anomalies up until
right.
The administrator created one. Give form to something that had not existed before we started. We succeeded, but at a terrible cost.
Yes.
So then, with the Blackbird, he says, I am Mortimer J. Denning von Kronecker. I'm your next overseer. Number 5, you see. I noticed you were going down numerically. Not maybe the most unique approach, but I'll admit it's narratively consistent. Calvin, as he always does, whenever an administrator is in front of him, pulls up his pistol and tries to shoot him. But the bullets don't seem to do much until suddenly the Blackbird chokes up blood, falls over dead. And then another Blackbird appears next to the dead body.
Mm.
And when they're all stunned, don't know what to say, he pulls out a knife, shoves it in his own throat, cuts, and then spawns right next to him again.
See ya, Dark.
Have a good one, Dark. So just repeated Blackbirds, right?
Yeah.
Then, suddenly, after everybody is shocked by what's going on, the Blackbird leads them down a path. And they don't realize why they're following him, right? They can't seem to stop themselves from following him.
Yeah.
And as they go, the sky changes from a deep purple to gray.
Okay.
Rain begins to fall. And Mortimer shows them his world. He's from a different dimension. And in his world of London, SCP-049 was the only anomaly. 049 is the plague doctor. The plague doctor that is trying to cure death by operating on people.
Right.
And so all the world, but specifically all the world is London in this.
Yeah.
All the world waits for him to come for them. Because he'll come to find a new victim whenever he wants. The Black Death, as it were, hit that world very hard, they say.
Yeah.
And so then he mentions that after everything started to fall apart, things crumbled, he found out he had the ability to move between realities.
Helpful.
His desire to leave and be
Right.
away from all that got him away, right? In that other reality, he found himself. And then together they went and found another of himself. And together they went and found another one of himself. Until they'd found all of themselves that existed in all the realities, because they're not truly infinite, he tells them. They are finite. And once they'd found all of themselves, they fused. And so it doesn't matter how many of their bodies die.
Yeah.
Because they are the same all together, all around. He mentions that, I don't know if you remember a mention to the Black Queen earlier on. But it's a woman named Allison Cho.
Yes.
We mentioned her in our big SCP roundup as well. She's the leader of the Serpent's Hand. She has also done this. But hers, she hasn't fused with hers. She just is in contact with all of them. She calls them her sisters. And so she can reach into other universes by contacting her sisters, right? And he mentions that he's not alone in this ability, but he's only ever found her that could do it too. There's a lot of like little stuff here as he tries to convince them that he's a good guy, he's on their side, you know.
Yeah.
Tries to be very cordial to them. And then he offers them an out. He takes, and each one of them, whether they wanted to or not, are forced to go through a door. And in that door, they see the world they want to live in. And if they'll just accept that world, they can live in this delusion and won't have to die. And neither will any of the rest of the O5 Council. But if they won't accept this delusion, the Blackbird will find them in every dimension and kill them. Until they no longer exist anywhere. That's his offer.
Yeah.
So, each of them goes in. Olivia is offered a ship that she owns. Where she can go wherever she wants. She's not hunted by the Foundation. Nobody's after her. No one will interrupt her art. She's free to create. A world where she doesn't have to run. A world where Tevin Laredo was not turned into glass by her on accident when she tried to paint him.
Yeah.
Tevin Laredo, of course, being the man that she loved. Adam is offered a home in Oregon, where his family is safe, not SCP-610 instances, and alive. Where his siblings grew up and grew apart, but were not used as test subjects by the Foundation. And where Calvin and Adam are in love, married, and live in peace. Calvin sees the chance to save his mother.
Yeah.
He watches the young version of him watching her walking towards the water and knows that he could run over there and stop her. But he also now sees the figure in green standing in the tree line that had given him the tube before.
Yeah.
And he instead chooses to walk up to her instead of saving his mother. The Blackbird is throwing a fit. How are you operating in this world? How are you making choices that aren't the ones I laid out for you? This is the perfect dimension where you only do what I thought you were going to do. The figure gives him the tube. Calvin walks over to the young version himself and hands it to him. And that's how he actually got the tube that holds the spear of the non-believer. The Blackbird helped him do it.
Yeah.
Had no idea he was going to be the one to do it, right? He then has the young version of him open the canister. And from it comes out not the spear, but a pair of glasses and a fishing rod. The pair of glasses, when he puts them on, lets him see the Blackbird for who he really is. He's not a man. He is a winged monstrosity of souls that have been fused together. He looks like a demon almost.
Yeah.
And with the fishing rod that says on it, Dr. Wondertainment's interdimensional line and lure, Dr. Wondertainment being the man that creates anomalous toys for fun, he pulls back and he launches the line and catches the Blackbird right in the edge of the neck. The Blackbird, realizing what's just happened and that he can't just escape or get away because he's inside a pocket dimension he created right now, tries to flee. And when he does, Calvin goes with him using the fishing rod.
Right.
Calvin, there's a lot of reality hopping here, but also from the tube, he had, and this is when we find out that he had also taken a third item. It's a wiffle bat with the phrase, "Bird be gone" by Dado. And Dado is another person that makes anomalous artifacts, right?
Yeah.
And so with every hop they take throughout multiple dimensions, Calvin gets a little bit closer and a little bit closer as he reels the line in and he reels the line in until eventually he's within range. And then every hop, he smacks the Blackbird in the face with the wiffle bat. And they do this for countless realities as the Blackbird is desperate to get rid of him, knowing that he can't really stop him at this point.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know what's going to happen if he kills Calvin when they're in between dimensions. Will Calvin just reappear like he's been reappearing?
Yeah.
So he has to make a choice every time when they hop to a new world. Is this a world where Calvin's still alive? Yes. I have to hop to the next one. And every time Calvin gets closer and beats him. Eventually they get to one world that Calvin doesn't recognize. And in this world is a woman. And the Blackbird is beat down. He is battered. He is dazed. He's barely conscious anymore. There's no telling how many times Calvin hit him with his bat.
Right.
And the woman tells Calvin to activate the machine that is next to them. The Blackbird recognizes her, and it is the Black Queen, Allison Cho. It is the other one that has the ability that he has.
Right.
And he doesn't understand why she's been helping Calvin. He says, you were the one that was by the lake. You were the one that gave him the tube.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand why she's helping. And Allison says, I've had enough, Mort. You just kept collecting yours, and I've had enough of all this. It needs to stop. And so Calvin activates the machine like she said, and Netzach lowers the safety procedures on the Singularity.
Oh.
Which sees an overseer in front of it.
Yeah.
And crushes him into nothing. And so since he was every version of 05-5, they are all nothing. Yes. And then immediately Netzach initiates defensive procedures again. Shields go back up. This Allison Cho tells Calvin goodbye, says you need to leave and I will help you go.
Yeah.
Cast the fishing line one more time and one of my sisters will grab it. And, you know, you can be pulled back to your dimension. And so he thanks her for all her help. He leaves. And then she says, Netzach, how much longer do we have? And he says, 11 minutes. And so this is when we find out that this is this universe's version of 053, which was the one that stayed and smoked that cigarette with Netzach right at the end there and complained that it didn't have a better personality. It was a version of Allison Cho. And so from there we go. Calvin gets back. Olivia and Adam are back out of it. because the Blackbird's power is gone.
Right.
But they're both still out of it, right? Having seen their heart's desire and it's now been ripped away from them.
Yeah.
They are broken. And so Adam and Olivia, they get loaded up into a jet by Calvin because they're going after number 4, the ambassador. And the ambassador wants to talk.
He's
The
an ambassador.
is ready to flip sides. The ambassador's like, look, just don't kill me and I'll tell you everything you want to know about the top 3.
Yeah.
However, 051 finds out about it. And so he sends the right hand, the red right hand, to go hunt down 054 and kind of doesn't care if they kill Calvin or not, right?
Yeah.
His goal is 054. And 054 meets up with a couple of the members of the team that aren't of Calvin's team but are of Delta. He has the anomalous ability to convince everybody that he's on your side. And so he almost, because this is not what he should be focused on, he almost convinces a woman that she's in love with him so that she will be more endeared to him to help him get the deal, you know? The only reason he's not able to pull it off is because one of the other guys in Delta breaks the line of sight and then it starts working on him. But between the two of them, they're able to figure out what's going on, you know? Yeah. But in the middle of all this, we get another flashback as 054 tells us about the meeting where they talk about the spear of the non-believer. And I hope I'm not boring you too much, Chad. I hope you're still enamored by this story because we're getting some of the best parts. This is where we get the in-universe story of Adam al-Asim, the first man, the first king, who built the first city, Papadopoulos. I cannot tell you how hard I had to work to be able to say that right every time.
Okay.
It was built by Is and Is Not, the true creators, which is God, the all that is in the universe, and Papadopoulos, and Is Not that which is not God, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Right. The council talks about how they got it from that city and that it was given to 05-2, who is Sophia Nazarene. And it was for her to keep and keep safe. And at this point, it seems like everything would be fine, right? The council is pretty sure they'll be okay. Death tells them that right now, because remember, Death had to sleep on the council. Death tells them that right now, Lancelot, Relevine, Beowulf, and Barata are not after them. So those are the 4 knights that become demonized, you know. They then, 054 then tells them another story that is kind of shocking, and it's that when Lucifer was cast out of heaven, his crown shattered, and a part of it was found by Cain, who used it to kill Abel in the field. Cain then used it with Abel's bones, like we talked about, to forge the spear. This spear eventually would wind up in the city of Adapalopoulos. Adapalopodop.
You know, Big Bird friend.
I had it. I was doing fine. Papadopoulos. Either way, whichever one of these stories is correct, because 054 is not sure. Whichever one of these is correct, that's the spear.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful. So, in the middle of this meeting, when Ambassador is trying to convince Calvin that he's on his side, Calvin is not taking any of it. Calvin refuses to shake his hand. Calvin came here to kill him anyway, right?
Yeah.
To get the information out of him, then to shoot him anyway. The whole airport they're meeting him at erupts in gunfire. Adam and Olivia are still in the plane. And Red Right Hand bursts in, enhanced cyborg men and women, outfitted with the best gear and near unstoppable. And when I tell you that I could not do this justice if I tried to give you this action scene, I can't. I'm not going to.
All right.
You need to read it for yourself. But at one point, one of the members of Red Right Hand lifts a Chaos Insurgency agent by the face with one hand, and then using the underbarrel flamethrower on her other arm, engulfs the man's face in flames.
Yeah.
these people are sick, right? They're very cool. They jump out of windows and don't miss a beat. Somebody rips off a steel support pillar and uses it as a club to kill people. These guys are very cool. One of them's got a minigun. Calvin's good friend Sloan is here to help him with all this.
Okay.
You can probably guess anytime one of Calvin's friends comes into the story in one of these, they always die.
Yeah.
Sloan takes a bullet in the leg and then gets his head crushed in by the boot of one of the Red Right Hand. But they don't kill Calvin. Calvin has been able to get 054 out onto the tarmac. They're trying to get to the plane, right? And when finally a bullet catches Calvin in the leg and he goes down, the Red Right Hand puts down 054. But they don't kill Calvin. And as the plane takes off, as it seems like Adam and Olivia are going to leave Calvin to die, the one with the minigun shoots the plane out of the sky.
Oh, okay.
And so Calvin goes to try and pull out his pistol again, even though one of their Red Right Hand's boots is on his chest.
Yeah.
And when he pulls the pistol up, it just kind of does like a little kick with its foot.
Yeah.
And knocks the pistol out of his hand and then punches him once in the face and he's knocked out.
Right.
When he wakes up, he is being held by 05-3, the kid.
Okay.
He can't see 05-3. And again, when I talked about how there's a couple things where it's like, all right, the fact that another one of them took him hostage instead of just killing him.
Yeah.
Like, do you not remember what happened the last time this happened? This is not James Bond. Just shoot him, you know? Your killers were right there, man. We get another little flashback here. As Aaron Siegel, 05-1, made the deal with death originally not to save himself, but to save 05-2, Sophia Nazarene, the woman he loved. Sophia Nazarene had the anomalous ability to regenerate. And regeneration was doing great for her. She's called Sophia Nazarene because she's from Nazareth. And some people... Nazareth, sorry, I said that really weird. And some people figured out from her ability, well, she must be the second coming of Christ.
Oh, okay.
And so they did a bunch of stuff to her. They hung her up on crosses. They burned her. She always regenerated. But it's not that her ability was regeneration. It's that her ability was to go back slightly in time to before it happened. She had the ability to walk through time. And eventually all those injuries had to catch up to her.
Yeah.
And so she's caught all of them catch up at once and she dies.
Yeah.
And 051 makes the deal with death, who tells him she won't be the same.
Yeah.
She will not be the woman you want her to be. She will not be the woman you love. And 051 says, I don't care.
Yeah.
And so he signs the deal with death by giving 0513 up. And, you know, that's how we get there. So Calvin wakes up and a mechanical voice says, you've been sleeping for a long time. Calvin has a conversation with this person. The kid tells him that originally his name, the original 03's name was Anderson, and he built impossible machines, machines that could think, machines that could love. But his greatest creation was a machine that could see the future, one that his father could use to find the preferred option if needed. Anderson was the one who built the machines that the children were put in for 051. Eventually, Anderson lost his love for the anomalous and was left the council and became a member of the Church of the Broken God.
Oh.
And he's the one that was in charge of that local church.
Yeah.
That brought them the faulty heart.
Right. Okay.
So it's implied there that he made a deal with the devil to make the heart of the foundry. And, you know.
Okay.
Anyway, before he left, he made someone to take his place. And that was the kid. A machine that could think clearly and wouldn't be swayed by emotion. However, he has been swayed by emotion because he's furious that all of his friends are dead. And how could Calvin do this to him? And so then Olivia and Adam are brought down in steel restraints. And he can tell they're still breathing. They seem okay, you know. The kid basically threatens torture and all kinds of terrible stuff, you know. He's going to kill him, and he's going to make Calvin watch, and then Calvin's going to feel what it's like for his friends to be killed in front of him. And then in the middle of this conversation, as Calvin has been working through his restraints, a thin fishing line comes down in front of him. And he grabs it and pulls. When he does, another one of Allison Cho's sisters has sent him a gift. And it is the actual fishing rod again. And a note that says cast.
Yeah.
So when he does, it catches something. He doesn't know what. And when he pulls, a tear in reality opens up. Remember when I said there are some convenient things that happen?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
A tear in reality opens up, and from it comes intense cold and a gigantic creature with too many arms and too many legs and too many hands. And instead of a head, it has a flat disc covered in flaming glyphs that pulse when it jerks and spasms forward. The Red Right Hand comes out of a side room and begins to fight this creature that doesn't seem to really care about their bullets.
Okay.
It raises hands and fire and lightning erupt from its fingertips. And the fight begins.
Okay.
As the cyborgs fight this otherworldly creature. Calvin frees Adam and Olivia, and they watch in horror because they have nowhere to run to.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even know which way is out. They watch in horror as this creature kills the members of the Red Right Hand. But every time it does, the floor opens up, and from below comes a tube, and another clone of the Red Right Hand steps out. Because of course the Foundation cloned them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're their best.
Yeah.
And so this fight goes on for a while before Adam finds like a panel in the wall. And it's different than all the others, and he doesn't know why it's different, but he knows that it being different is important.
Yeah.
So he starts trying to pry it open. Olivia draws a thin black circle on a sheet of white paper and throws it into the vat that all of the clones are coming out of.
Yes.
It becomes a hole through which they can see stars as she opens a hole to space. The vacuum starts pulling everything towards it, including the three of them, right? The entity turns towards the hole, and despite the silence of the vacuum, Calvin can hear the drum beats of the creature's furious heart. Its hands all come together in front of it, all the hundreds of hands. And when it pulls its hands back, there are now even more hands, and it casts a spell to seal the hole.
Okay.
So this thing is pretty crazy, right? However, it doesn't take. And so the creature is pulled over the top of the hole. It grabs the corners and pulls the hole closed. If magic won't keep it sealed, it will just force reality to seal around it.
Yeah.
Then it pauses above the air for just a moment. And now that the hole is gone, it falls into the vat. And in the vat, it seems to start pulling everything apart in there. No more clones come out. And then the creature almost seems like it's going to try and climb back up. But then it falls into the vat and it's gone. And they don't know if it's whisked itself away somewhere else, or if it has melted away. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Right? 053 starts screeching. Enough, enough, enough. And a gun turret comes out of the wall and opens fire on him. Adam is trying to get the panel open still. Olivia moves in the way and she gets shot in the head.
Oh, okay.
And so then Calvin shoots the turret and takes it down. While he's trying to help Adam, another one comes out and shoots Adam in the back.
Ouch.
So Adam goes down. Calvin shoots that one and then realizes they have no time. He pulls out the spear. He jams it up under the edge of the panel and he heaves. Panel flips open and inside is a fetus.
Ooh.
Remember how we wanted to make a machine that would have the heart of a person but think clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, they took a fetus and made it into the kid. And this next part's going to get demonetized for sure. But Calvin doesn't waste any time. He reaches in, he grabs the fetus, he squeezes. 053 is dead. The speakers stop laughing.
Yeah.
And start screeching, and then stop screeching and go silent. Calvin goes to check on Adam and Olivia. Olivia's dead.
Yeah.
Adam is bad hurt. The bullet entered through the back, right under one of his vertebrae.
Oh, okay.
And it has gone all the way through, and he
Yeah.
is now bleeding out the front.
Yeah.
It's a bad wound. He'd been hunched over when he fell, so the bleeding was accelerated. He doesn't have much time. Calvin doesn't even think. He pulls out the water of the fountain of life, and he pours it down Adam's throat. He watches as the wound heals.
Yeah.
And then he hears the door open, and he leaves. He picks Adam and Olivia up and carries them out of this facility.
Yeah.
But then he leaves Adam on the ground because he knows Adam's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And Adam is begging him not to go. Adam is telling him to come back. Please don't leave me. Please don't leave me, Calvin.
Yeah.
We've done enough. Don't leave me. Don't leave me like everybody else did.
Yeah.
Well, Calvin leaves him on the ground, and he carries Olivia into a nearby cave, and he puts her there, and then he goes towards the closest building, which he assumes is the final spot, right?
Yeah.
And this leads to the Nazarene. 05-2, the Nazarene. That's mine doing the same thing.
Yeah.
When he gets there, 052 is long dead.
Okay.
When 13 died,
Yeah, all the...
anybody sustained by him died. We get a little flashback here, as 05-1 was anomalous himself, of course. All of the 05 were.
Right.
He could see the threads that bind reality, and he can pull at them. He knows that Calvin's coming for him. And so, when he pulls the threads that hold reality, he can, for just a little while, undo them. And that gives him incredible anomalous ability, right? He can do all kinds of stuff if he can bend reality to his will. So, he faces down the gate guardian at the garden, and he pulls a thread so that the guardian looks down at him and is focused on him for just a minute, and then uses a Scranton reality anchor to make the guardian it's no longer anomalous when it's within the radius of that.
Yeah.
And so the guardian folds in on itself. It will come back as soon as the anchor's pulled.
Right.
But it means he's able to freely get into the garden. And in the garden there, he finds 052 dead. She has stabbed herself. She's bled out. 051, who has done all of this for her, is furious. He's enraged. And when he comes out, he doesn't just let the Guardian go back to being normal, right? While it is condensed in on itself, he pulls threads to set it on fire with its own heat until it melts away to just be a skeleton, and even that cascades away. And as he does, he doesn't care what gods may be angry at him for it, for he has decided that the world must burn. So he goes to the site where Lucifer fell, and he pulls out Lucifer's flaming sword.
Pergamon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he wraps it up in his own coat, and he leaves to go await Calvin Lucian. And there's a really powerful moment here, as much as Aaron is not a good man, right?
Yeah.
There's a very powerful moment here of when he's standing before her body and he starts crying out for death and saying, we had a deal. It's not my fault the deal was broken. We had a deal. Where are you? And Death just doesn't answer.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because Death's not going to answer him anymore, right? There's, at one point there, he sits next to her body for hours. And it says he painfully takes each breath, hoping he might not take another. But he's too angry to let himself die.
Yeah.
Because all of this is Calvin's fault.
Right.
And so he goes to await Calvin. Next to her body was a note. And it just says, Aaron, I am not who I was when we first met. Every time I have walked with death along that quiet road back to your side, I have become less of who I was, and I no longer recognize this thing I am. I'm so sorry, but I can't continue to be this any longer. I was the one who gave Calvin Lucian our last vials from the fountain and put your godless lance in his hand. So she's the one who took it out of storage and gave it to Allison Cho, who got it to Calvin. I saw his path and saw the red line that draws him towards you. I thought that maybe I would see him break your convictions and I would have you as my own again and undo the mistake I made when I set you on this path all those years ago. But I had not considered how very little of Sophia Light I am now. That was her original name. Nothing stands between you and those convictions now. There are no more distractions. I would hope that this would give you some semblance of peace, a chance to walk away and live out the rest of your life we might have. I want this for you, even though I know this changes nothing. He is still waiting for you, and you will still meet him. Maybe I'll see you again. Maybe I'll be waiting for you on that distant shore. So, having gained Lucifer's sword, the star of the morning, right?
Okay.
Calvin, now, Aaron waiting in the facility, Site 1. Calvin makes his way to the building that is Site 1. He was right in his guess. This building that 053 had taken him so close to was Site 1.
Yeah.
The journal has nothing more for him. It has no more clues. It has no more hints. There is no hint in there how to kill 05-1. It's up to Calvin now. He's got the spear. That'll have to be enough. So he tosses the journal aside, hoping that maybe somebody else will be able to find it if he fails.
Okay.
Like I said, he left Olivia's body in a cave, covered and hidden, promised he'd come back for her. He only has the spear in his hand and the echo of Adam's pleas in his heart. And he enters the facility. When he gets in there, he finds a door that has a bunch of different SCPs on it. Right? Emblems of them. And it's ad time. I'm gonna take a quick drink. Because we're right at the end here. Time for the final stretch of the Ouroborous Cycle.
Yes.
You see now why I said that all that stuff before is important. It builds up to this. Mm-hmm. Even if it does kind of feel like they're different stories, right?
Right.
But inside, in front of this door, he finds Purpose. Purpose is the original Red Right Hand. He is the first one. Welcome back. And Calvin realizes this man used to be Agent Lament, which is a big agent in the SCP Foundation, very popular guy, but he seems to hold no ill will towards him. He tells him, Purpose does, that he protects the Sanctum until 05-1 returns. Calvin asks him where 051 is, and Purpose says he's in here, and he steps aside. Calvin says, will anybody be joining us? Purpose says no. Calvin says, make sure they don't. Purpose says, as you wish. Calvin enters the room, and there's a table and screens all across the wall. And each one of these screens shows the Foundation at work, but they also show Calvin's team's journey, all the things they did, all the way 051 had been watching the entire time.
Right.
It shows every single person, all the 05 that they killed, how they got there. And he sees threads along the screens following them to this room. Like they all lead to this moment where he's in this room. Yeah. And to the man sitting on the stairs waiting for him. He says, you are 05-1? The man says something, but he couldn't hear it. The man says, Aaron. My name is Aaron. Aaron Siegel, 05-1? Yes. Calvin says, the second. Where are they? Aaron doesn't say anything. But all of a sudden, the room gets colder. Calvin says, so it's just you? Aaron says, yep, it's just me. Calvin draws his pistol. This is Calvin.
Yeah.
So does the same thing he always does. He pulls his pistol out and tries to fire. The bullets do nothing. It seems almost like before they can even reach him, they just stop existing. So he then says, stand up, Aaron, and pulls out his spear. Says, let's finish it. Aaron doesn't stand up. He says, where'd you get the spear? Calvin doesn't answer. Aaron starts laughing. He says, you've traveled across a lifetime to get to this place and find me, and you're going to kill me with a spear? You don't even know why you're here. Calvin says, I'm here because I want to kill you. When I kill you, I kill the Foundation. I kill the Foundation, the universe can heal. You are a cancer. Aaron stands up and says, no, you're like me. Filled with righteous conviction, spurring you forward. It wasn't fate. It wasn't destiny. It was a sheer, unspeakable, unknowable force of unimpeded will. You there and me here. In a trillion worlds and a billion universes, we would each find ourselves here. Conviction led me to this place just as it led you. Draws the sword, and he says, two unstoppable forces hurtling towards each other with nothing between them. The sword gleams as he holds it out. It seems to let out almost a scream from the blade itself. Tormented. And then, when Calvin sees Aaron's eyes, they look just like his. He sees in him that same conviction that has driven him this whole time. And Aaron says, there's nothing else to say, Calvin Lucian. Either your convictions will be broken today or mine will, and one of us will die. Calvin nods and he says, let's finish it. Again, I can't really do justice to you for the fight here. It's really well done. As the Sword of the Morning and the Spear of the Non-Believer, these completely anomalous artifacts, are able to allow them to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. They fight all across this room. They get into the next room. Monitors are breaking everywhere. Calvin throws the spear at one point, and Aaron knocks it aside, and then it returns to Calvin's hand. And it's a really cool fight. But partway through, they take a break, because despite everything, they are still human. They get wore out from using the power of these artifacts, and they take a break here to breathe for a moment. And Aaron says, you are an incredible testament to the will of the insurgency. A younger me would have been envious. Calvin says, what do you have to be envious of? Aaron says, when I was younger, I made mistakes. Costly mistakes. I always thought those mistakes were because my resolve wasn't strong enough. But here you are. Your resolve is every bit as strong as mine, maybe stronger. And here you are standing exactly where I stood, making those same mistakes. Calvin says, I'm nothing like you. I know what you are. A traitor. You were made the engineer of the insurgency, and you betrayed us for all the power they could give you. You betrayed your ideals for a golden throne and everlasting life. Calvin says, I'm not the engineer. Aaron says, I'm not the engineer, Calvin. I never was. Vince Arians was the engineer. We built it together. He called me the engineer. But I was just the chief. I was just in charge. He was the chief architect. He wrote the Summa Modus Operandi and designed the insurgency as a check against us. Against me. He says, you are right about one thing, though. I did betray you. I betrayed all of you. But not to forsake my ideals. A moment came when I had to balance those ideas against something horrible, and they were not strong enough to sustain me. The sword lights up, and in the room, it almost seems like flame is dancing on the walls in the reflection of the sword. He says, I'm going to kill you, Calvin. Not because I hate you, or because I'm afraid you'll usurp me. I'm going to kill you because I'm afraid your will is stronger than mine was then. I'm going to kill you because if you kill me, you're going to be standing in the exact same place I was so many years ago, and you will be stronger. Aaron raises the Sword of the Morning above his head, sets the entire room on fire. The fires begin to grow in intensity, right? But Calvin had already jumped. And he's got the spear in his hand, and he throws it. And when he does, Aaron tries to bring the sword down to block the spear. But a spear that was able to pierce God, what good could the sword of Lucifer hold against it?
Yeah. And
so the sword of Lucifer breaks, the Sword of the Morning. The spear of the non-believer pins Aaron Siegel to the wall. And Aaron Siegel dies. Okay. The last words out of his mouth are, spoke too soon.
Yeah.
Calvin realizes that he's killed him. Goes back out to Purpose. And he says, Purpose, there exists a room in this facility where someone could unmake the Foundation, correct? Purpose says, correct. Calvin says, below the antechamber, right? He says, correct. He says, take me there. Calvin goes down. All the O5 members are dead. And when he goes through this next room, there are more monitors, and each one of them shows a dead O5 member. He gets to the end of the room, and there's a long table. Past that is a desk, and a computer set up on it with a black metal rotary phone on it. The computer prompts a retina scan and fingerprint scan, which, when he uses them, they log him in. He sits down, and a single option appears on the computer. Terminate. He reaches for the mouse to finish all of this when the phone rings. He almost doesn't answer it. He almost clicks the button. But finally he answers the phone. He says, "Hello?" A voice crackles back, and I'm going to read this part verbatim.
Okay.
It was a man's voice, no doubt, but there was something about it that had caused the hair on Calvin's arms to stand on end. He felt like he was hearing something that was both very far away and occupying the same space he was. "Congratulations are in order, Mr. Lucien," the voice said, its timbre light and its tone smooth. "You've demonstrated exceptional initiative. I'm certain it will serve us well." "Who is this?" "Who am I? Please, Mr. Lucien. Surely you've guessed by now. I'm the man you've been trying to kill." What do you mean?" "I'm the administrator, Mr. Lucien." Something else appeared in Calvin's soul, something like fear but far more primal. "That's not possible. The administrator was killed. Aaron Siegel killed him." The voice hemmed softly. No, he didn't. He killed the man called Frederick Williams." "But Frederick Williams was the administrator." The voice chuckled. It wasn't an unfriendly sound. "Again, not quite. See, Mr. Williams was just a man tugging upon a frayed string, slowly unraveling the universe. He found the string, studied the string, categorized it, classified it, and eventually he became it. That was how the Foundation was born. Frederick Williams saw something larger than himself and planted the seed that would make it grow. Aaron Siegel killed him for it, but part of him is still here. He's still here because Aaron Siegel killed a man but did not kill the seed. Do you see it yet? He did not kill me." Calvin says, "What are you?" The administrator says, "A signature on a document, a suit in a boardroom, a voice on the phone." Mr. Siegel realized the truth too late. Though Frederick Williams was the Foundation's first administrator, he was not the administrator. I am, Mr. Lucien. I exist because of the Foundation, and the Foundation exists because of me. What is it that Purpose is always saying? To know my nature is to know the nature of the Foundation? Something like that? Calvin can't bring himself to respond. And the voice says, "Did you genuinely think Mr. Siegel joined the Foundation for power? That the Foundation seduced him and he fell for its wiles and ways? No. He reached a conclusion and made a decision at the expense of his ideals. He did it for the same reason you're standing here today, because he wanted to finish the job. Then you came along, and after all the warnings, you still decided to put a spear through his heart, the only man standing between myself and all of creation. And then you picked up the phone." Calvin says, "What if I hadn't picked it up?" The voice on the other side laughs. "Don't be silly, Calvin. Someone always picks up the phone." "I could still walk away." "Yes, you could. You could walk away right now, and nobody but you and me would ever know you were here. You could even press that button there and see what that means for the Foundation. And then, in a few minutes, that phone would ring again, and again, and again, and no one would answer. No one would tell them what to do, Mr. Lucien. When those sites are broken open and the monsters inside are loosed from their cages, billions will die. And then more. And I'll still be here. You said it yourself. I'm a cancer. I'm the anomaly. I was born when the first man saw the first miracle, the emergent conscious of the entire Foundation. Frederick Williams didn't realize what he'd done when he did it, but Mr. Siegel figured it out in time. Who do you think is in the best position to stop that cancer from spreading now? Certainly not Mr. Siegel. He's impaled on a wall upstairs. You killed the rest of his protectors, those he charged to continue his work if he ever died. Who do you think will contain me now? They were evil." "Evil? Honestly, Calvin. This has just been your greatest failing so far. Believing that you are somehow in the moral right. You've justified your actions because you were doing good and the enemy was doing evil. You never stop to consider decisions, Calvin, and why people make them. The administrator then lays out all of the things that the O5 Council did, why they did them, the people they used to be,
Yeah.
the things they were responsible for protecting mankind from, how all of them originally meant to be good and never meant to be evil. There's even a really nice Pharisee reference here of how none of the Pharisees originally intended to go against the law of Moses.
No.
You
No.
know, there's just a really nice little breakdown there that's really long, so I didn't get all that on here.
Yeah.
But then he says that there are only choices and that Calvin has to make his. He says, you'll find the job has certain perks. Who knows? Aaron Siegel couldn't kill me, but maybe you'll find a way. And sometimes, if you try very hard, catch it right in the right light, and squint just enough, you might even manage to convince yourself you're doing the right thing. Calvin said nothing. The world around him was empty. All that remained was the phone and the voice. In the back of his mind, he saw Adam lying on the ground, screaming his name, begging him to come back. Olivia, her skin broken and blood seeping through the cracks in her face, her eyes glassy and unseeing, and Anthony collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. He heard the clock upstairs chime on the hour. Cheer up, Mr. Lucien. Our work is just beginning. For a moment, Calvin sees Aaron sitting in the same chair. Vincent Arians, his friend Anthony, pleading with Aaron to put the phone down. But Aaron was just as trapped as Calvin is now. The phone rang again. On the 7th ring, Calvin answered. In our epilogue, we have O5-1, the Usurper, Caucasian male, formerly Calvin Lucien. Calvin Lucien heads to Site 108 and meets with Director House. A plane carrying Foundation artifacts has gone down into a farmhouse, leaving 11 dead and multiple artifacts missing. There's very clear insurgency work here. They brought the plane down. They're trying to stop Calvin. Calvin realizes that one of these artifacts is a soul jar, which is a very important artifact. It allows somebody to continue living after death, something that the O5 Council needs now because death is no longer answering their summons. In this wreckage of this plane drop, there is a USB drive. And Calvin sends everybody else away so that he can watch it. On it is Adam. And Adam says, I know you're watching, Calvin. This is the world you built. These are your towers, your planes. These deaths are on your hands. I am the red right hand. I am what you were too craven to do. You can sit there in the fortress that you should have burned to the ground, but you should not feel safe in it. For just a moment, Adam takes a moment to breathe, and Calvin can see in him what the years have done. And Adam says, I don't understand, Calvin. I've never understood. I trusted you. We trusted you. Anthony, myself, Delta, Olivia. I've seen what you've done to her. I've seen the puppet you've been parading around, masquerading as an overseer. That's not her, Calvin. I don't know what sort of foul dealing you had to do to get that creature to walk and talk, but I knew Olivia, and she died, and that's not her. You're a coward. You're a coward and a traitor, and I will make you suffer every day for the rest of your life for what you've done. I am vengeance. I am wrath. And the video cuts out. Later that day, O5-1 has a meeting with his new O5 council. Olivia, O5-2, sits next to him and stares at him all meeting. She doesn't say anything. That night, Calvin sits at a desk and makes a file, collating everything he knows about the administrator. He tries to put together a plan, but he worries that he'll get complacent at some point, that someone else will come to take his place. Olivia enters the room and sits unmoving in the corner. He closes the laptop and he looks over at her, and he can see her face illuminated in the darkness. She doesn't blink. Her eyes are fixed on him. She will not be the same, the Avatar had told him. You cannot cross that threshold and return as you were. Good evening, Olivia, he says. Are you ready for bed? He knows she doesn't sleep anymore. She'll stay in the corner, watching him, unblinking, the entire night. She opens her mouth and he prepares himself for Calvin. He doesn't move. He doesn't breathe. Please, not tonight, Olivia. I can't do it tonight. Just go to sleep. She said, unmoving the rest of the night. Calvin didn't sleep either. In the morning, she's gone, and he's alone again. He gets up, gets dressed, pours himself a cup of coffee, opens his computer, and after a moment, the phone on his desk rings as it has so many times before. As he had so many times before, 05-1 answers. And that's the end.
All right. So basically nothing happened.
Yeah, he became the administrator, or he became 05-1.
That's one, right? Got him a new council.
The true evil was the administrator, and without an 05 council there to control him.
Well, it's not the 05 council, it's all the crap that they've got penned up, you know?
Yeah.
That he would let loose.
Exactly. It is the title. It's the Ouroborous Cycle.
Yeah.
The snake eating its own tail. It always comes back to...
Right. That's pretty cool.
I feel like Dark's going to hate that ending.
Maybe.
I think it's really interesting because the administrator, it didn't have to be this way. It's not like it was an alien creature. It's Frederick Williams opened the door, and now everybody else has to deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
Anomalies are coming in now because of that guy, and Aaron Siegel killed him, but he couldn't kill the administrator.
Right.
You know? So, will Calvin be able to do it? Probably not. Adam will probably take his place next, you know? Just go down the line, but eventually nobody will be able to be immortal anymore because they're running out of water alive. Death doesn't want to make deals.
Yeah.
You know, Soul Jar's getting smashed. You know, but
yeah,
I like that one a lot because it is very much a continuous story where the reveals jump out at you each time, and you're like, that's what was going on with the broken god. That's what was going on with the children. You know, there are definitely some times where it gets too much.
Yeah.
I think, you know, hey, and then a guy shows up with a Humvee for him and then just runs off into the jungle. Like, all right, you could have
but they've also apparently were filmed the whole time.
Right. So was that actually Aaron helping them along, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but no, I do like it a lot though. I really love the references to other SCPs, and this was the biggest project that had ever been done. And so it has the most crossovers with other SCPs.
Right,
you know?
right.
I think that all of them were done justice. I don't think this is like a situation with God's Blind Spot where a couple of them get brought up and they don't really get to shine.
Yeah.
Like when 682 comes in here, he gets to be 682.
Yeah.
You know? But what'd you think?
Oh, it was good. I enjoyed it. And get him down. It was a good story. Good story. Like the a lot of backgrounds. In some ways, I don't know how much it really affects the full SCP.
It doesn't really, right?
Universe, you know.
Like it comes right back to zero again.
Yeah, it's just, you know, other than, yeah, no, there's a 05 council. It is not the original 05 council.
Right.
You know, but yeah.
I do really like the idea that you could go from this to every time you see 051 later, in your head, that's Calvin.
Yeah.
I think that could be really cool. I do think that not giving us the rest of the council is kind of a bummer because you can't do that with anybody else. Like 051 and 2 can always be Calvin and Olivia in your mind, but you don't have the rest.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't give us anybody else that could be those.
Well, yeah, but you don't have, it's the kind of the idea of the role they fulfill rather than the person.
That's true. And I do know some people that go from this story to go, okay, the 05 council for me now is that 13 that gets killed. And just in that universe, they weren't killed. Like, that's my 13 now.
Okay.
When 057 does something, it's green. When 056 does something, it's the American.
Gotcha,
you know?
Gotcha, yeah.
And I think that's also a cool way to play it. But
well, there is multi-universes and everything in this, so
yeah,
all kinds of stuff can happen.
So, next up, 051, if we're going to keep doing 051s, I got to get back out of the Ouroborous Cycle because it's really big.
Okay.
It's like 100 pages by the time I was done collating it all.
Ooh.
It's a lot of information. It took me many hours. I might not have the next one on here yet. I'm not sure what the next one is, but we'll get there. I want to say it's Consensus Reality, but I think we already did that one. So
yeah, I think so.
There's a lot more to go, so hopefully you're excited. But any other thoughts before we wrap this thing up then?
No, man. I enjoyed that. Enjoyed that quite a bit.
I like that story a lot. So
yeah.
Tomorrow we'll be doing SD Gundam Battle Alliance.
Right on.
Monday we'll be back with Lotro.
Yes.
Tuesday we'll be back with the regular podcast. Wednesday you're going to keep doing Forgotten City.
Yeah, I'm going to try to beat that.
And then we'll see how things go for next Thursday. So
yeah.
Until next time, I've been Trey.
I've been Rungren.
This has been the Full Spectrum TTRPG podcast. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Calvin Lucian has to offer.